So you're all professional women here, so this question I think may resonate with many of you. So let's just remind everyone of the question that's just been asked. And as a psychotherapist, this one is definitely one I get asked a lot, is about, how do I identify not only that I'm lacking in self-priority, but how have I found myself there? So as professional women, the first thing I think we all need to recognise is that you are likely wearing many hats. And within those many hats, somehow you need to harmonise them all. Now, I never use the word balance, because if I use the word balance, we're trying to perfect and get it even on both sides. And that's not how life works. It's about creating harmony. So first of all, think about the many roles that you may carry as a busy career professional, as possibly a partner or a mother, a colleague, a friend, a sibling, a daughter. There are so many roles, and that list could go on. And somehow you need to harmonise your life and find a way of navigating through each of them. Now, how we do that and how we do it with ease or how we do it with challenge is very much based on each individual story. So it's really important that this question, like many questions when it comes to being a human, is it very much depends on individual circumstance. But in a nutshell, think about it like this. We each have our own individual story. And within each individual story, as that story begins, the minute we open our eyes, we start to lock in the messages from around the world. So we start to lock in messages from our parents, our caregivers, our teachers, our friends, our siblings, our grandparents, our extended family, maybe coaches and teachers around us. So we start to lock in the messages from the world around us in terms of, what we should believe and how we should behave. And then we adapt our own behaviour based on that. Now that includes both positive and negative messages. And if you think as a woman, there's been a lot of cultural messages, particularly for particular generations, that we may also carry as well in terms of what it means to be a partner and a mother. And then we in this generation have this amazing gift that is choice, that we no longer, and it's completely fine if getting married and becoming a full-time mum is what makes you fulfilled. But if it's not what makes you fulfilled, you now have that choice where you don't just have to do that you can have a career and a family, or you can do one or the other. We have the choice that the women before us didn't have. But we also have the messages, and some of us still have messages from the mothers before us in terms of what that means and what that looks like. And it very much depends on the messages you've been sent as to where you're going to be on your priority list. If you've been taught that your number one priority in life is to look after your family first and that your happiness comes last, it's likely that's how you're going to operate. If you've grown up being made feel like you're not worthy or you're not good enough or that you're a failure, it's not uncommon sometimes that we're constantly trying to impress a caregiver or be the one in the family that's not been a so-called golden child, and we become the one that feels like the failure, constantly trying to gain everyone's approval. So when we come into life and we gather all these roles, we start to tell ourselves that we're not that priority on the list. For example, if you're operating on a failure coping mechanism, on a failure belief system, should I say, then it's highly likely you're going to overdrive in proving to everyone that you can do everything for everyone and be the bottom of your list. If you're someone who's been taught that, you can have the career and the family, but that always has to come first, and that you sacrifice yourself in that process, there'll be possibly feelings of not feeling worthy. So of course you're going to put yourself last in the priority list. So hopefully this has given some people some ideas in terms of some of the messaging that you may have received growing up culturally and from the people around you that has helped you lock in to finding yourself in the chaos of being at the bottom of your priority list. And what that usually means is we're running on an empty tank because we're doing everything for everyone and everyone else and not ourselves. And that's when we start to feel the overwhelm kick in. That's when we start to feel stress kick in. That's when the low mood starts to kick in, when that hopelessness starts to kick in. It's when the chaos comes to fruition. Maybe it comes to you via anger. I have my little dog with me today, so you can probably hear him growling at my feet. Someone must have walked past my office. Anyway, back to the subject in hand, that chaos begins to happen as we place ourselves at the bottom priority list. Because what we need to remember, and this is something I tell all of my clients, that if we have ourselves at the top of our priority list, if we give ourselves more, we can then give more. And what it also allows us to do, because if we are giving ourselves more, we're empowering ourselves, we're very much sitting in our queen archetype. And what we are doing is we are able to navigate with ease and make choices with ease that are best for us, which then means those around us get the best version of us. But when we're operating the opposite, essentially still in our princess form because we're at the bottom of our priority list and we're operating on an empty tank, there's no way possible we can give the best to everyone. And if we're not giving the best to ourselves, then how can we give not only the best to everyone, expect and also accept the same back? So hopefully you can see how that cycle begins. But you may be sitting there wondering, well, what do I do with that now? So the first thing is we need to recognise, why am I the bottom of my priority list? So it's about unburdening yourself from the reasonings that you are not a priority. Now, some of you will be professionals at this. Some of you may be sitting there, despite the fact that maybe you run about like a bit like a headless chicken and putting everyone else in front of yourself and finding every excuse under the sun as to why you can't do something for yourself, whether it be, I need to do this to the kids, this is my partner, I'm going on holiday, I've got this night out, I've got this to buy for this. You will find every reason under the sun to put yourself at the bottom priority list. So for some of you, you've become such a professional at it that you may be sitting right now saying, no, I don't really think I lack self-priority. I want you to sit and I want you to look at what all your priorities and all of your roles are and recognise where you are on that list. How often are you meeting your needs? What are your needs? What are your wants? What are your desires? Who do you want to be? And if you can't answer them, you're most likely not at the top of your priority list. But also if you're struggling to answer them or recognise that you're answering them but you're nowhere near where you need to be, then that's when we need to start looking at that unburdening. Think about the reasonings as to why you got there. What messages, is it that are ingrained deep within you? Now, that is one that is a lot deeper. And you may not be able to do that on your own, but you certainly can sit and look at, what are my needs and my wants and my desires for life? Am I meeting them? Why am I not meeting them? Why am I at the bottom of my priority list? What is it that I believe about myself that says I need to be at the bottom of my priority list? And the harder it is for you to answer, the more you need some support in doing so. Then what we need to look at is actually actioning it and actually starting to work through it and look at ways as to, how can I prioritize myself? It might be that you need to start creating some boundaries in your life. It might be to start saying no to people. It might just mean you now need to start carving out some me time. It might mean that you need to start looking at a change in direction. But it's about sitting down and recognising, if there was no fear, if there was no barriers, if there was no telling myself I'm not deserving or good enough or not worthy enough on the table, where is it I would want to be, and how can I start actioning this to make myself a priority? And then we need to think about the languaging that we're using in our head on a daily basis. How often are you telling yourself that you need to be a priority? How often are you telling yourself that you're worthy, you're powerful, you're capable, you're important, and that you need to be at the top of your priority list? How often are you doing the opposite? How often are you telling yourself that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy, that you're not capable? It's about affirming to ourselves on a daily basis what we need for ourselves in life and being powerful in that. Because remember, if we can't do that for ourselves, how can we deem that respect from those around us? Now, like I always say, this is surface level. This will give you some insight into the beginning of, let me make some action steps. Let me think about, how am I not a priority in my life? What am I prioritizing over myself? What can I start to prioritize, even if it's in a small way? Remember, small steps make for consistency. You don't need to take giant leaps. Start to think about where and what messages do I feel I've been given in life that I'm living by right now, that I need to start unburdening myself of? And how can I change that language to affirm to myself in a more positive manner so I can be a queen? Because none of us want to live in princess. None of us want to live in that younger version of ourselves. We want to be living in our queen archetype. We want to be a priority. To give ourselves more means we can give more. So like I said, this is always like the surface level because the mind is so beautiful and goes so deep. That's why I love being a psychotherapist. Hopefully this training's been of some help today. For more, hit the follow button, or alternatively, send me a DM. You can find me on Facebook, Insta, and TikTok. Enjoy the day you create.